Next is about mutation, a change in an organism's DNA. Mutations can result from DNA copying mistakes made during cell division, exposure to ionizing radiation, exposure to chemicals called mutagens, or infection by viruses. Mutation can be transmitted in gametes to offspring. If the DNA is carried by a gamete, it enters the population's gene pool. If the vast majority of mutations are very minor, changes in the DNA not drastically change, such as the one pictured here. Genetic drift. Genetic drift is the change in the frequency of an existing gene variant allele in a population due to random sampling of organisms. The change in the gene pool of a small population due to chance. There are different factors that cause genetic drift: bottleneck effect and founders effect. Bottleneck effect. The bottleneck effect is the extreme example of genetic drift that happens when the size of a population is severely reduced. A drastic reduction in population, which is caused due to volcanoes, earthquakes, landslides, reduced genetic variation. Smaller population may not be able to adapt to new selection pressure. Then founder effect. The founder effect is the loss of genetic variation that occurs when a new population is established by a very small number of individuals from a larger population. Because when a new colony is started by a few members of an original population, reduced genetic variation may lead to speciation. Bottleneck effect. Original population, bottleneck effect, surviving population, new population. Founder effect, parent population, migrating population, population under a couple of generations, founder population after a few more generations. Loss of genetic variation. Cheetahs have little genetic variation in their gene pool. This can probably be attributed to a population bottleneck they experienced around 10,000 years ago, barely avoiding extinction at the end of the last ice age. Gene flow. It is the genetic exchange due to migration of fertile individuals or gametes between populations. Gene flow happens when migrating individuals breed in their new location. Gene flow occurs due to exchange of genes in the adjacent populations through interbreeding. Population A, population B, gene flow will be happening. So larger population tend to show more migrations and hence more gene flow. Gene flow occurs due to exchange of genes in the adjacent population through interbreeding. So population 1, allele variant 1, allele variant 2, population 2 ലേക്ക് എത്തുന്നത്. So western deer population, mountain range, pass. Eastern east population. Brown beetle enter into a community consists only of green beetles, creating offspring with greater color diversity. Then a population of flowers on one side of a river transports pollen to the flowers of the other side of the river, producing offspring. Non-random mating. Mates are chosen on the basis of best traits. Non-random mating means that individuals of one species have a choice about which partners to mate with. The result of non-random mating is that some individuals have priority to mate than others, thus produce more offspring and more copies of their genes than others. Types: disassortative. Disassortative individuals only mate with others who are phenotypically different from themselves for selective traits. Opposite. Assortative individuals mate with others who are like themselves phenotypically for selected traits. Similar. Close relatives, first, second cousins, siblings. Assortative, similar. Disassortative, dissimilar. Non-random mating. Assortative mating, preference for similar genotypes or phenotypes. Disassortative mating, preference for different genotypes or phenotypes. Non-random mating, random mating. Mechanisms of variation, mutation, sexual reproduction, gene flow, mechanisms of change event, genetic drift, natural selection pressure. Macroevolution. Microevolution is an evolution that occurs at or above the level of the species. It is the result of microevolution taking place over many generations. Macroevolution may involve evolutionary changes in two interacting species, as in coevolution, or it may involve the emergence of one or more brand new species. Macroevolution encompasses the greatest trend and transformation in evolution, such as the origin of mammals. So mutation, gene flow, genetic drift, natural selection, 3.8 billion years, macroevolution. Speciation. Speciation is an evolutionary process by which a new species comes into being. A species is a group of organisms that can produce with one another to produce fertile offspring and is reproductively isolated from other organisms. Because geographical isolation is a common way for the process of speciation to begin. Rivers change course, mountains rise, continents drift, organisms migrate, and what was once a continuous population is divided into two or more smaller populations types: allopatric, peripatric, parapatric, and sympatric. Original population is here isolation and speciation. Allopatric speciation occurs when population is divided by a geographic barrier, various mountain, river regions excluding vital resources like water, food areas covered with volcanic lava. Interbreeding between populations not possible. Not possible. Reproductive isolation will be happening. Gene frequencies can diverge due to natural selection, mutation, and genetic drift. Origin of population, geographic barrier, reproductive isolation, speciation. Allopatric speciation. Peripatric speciation. Peripatric speciation is a mode of speciation in which a new species is formed from an isolated peripheral population. Peripatric speciation resembles allopatric speciation. The primary characteristics of peripatric speciation proposes that one of the population is much smaller than the other. Peripatric speciation can be distinguished from allopatric speciation by three key features: strong selection caused by the dispersal, colonization of the novel environment, then the effect of genetic drift on small population. Strong selection caused by the dispersal, colonization of the novel environment, the effect of genetic drift on small population. Peripheral isolate population, original population, geographical isolation, and speciation. Then parapatric speciation. In parapatric speciation, two subpopulations of species evolve reproductive isolation from one another while continuing to exchange genes. This mode of speciation have three distinguished characters. Mates occur non-randomly, gene flow occurs unequally, and populations exist in either continuous or discontinuous geographic ranges. This distribution pattern may be due to the result of unequal dispersal, incomplete geographic barriers, divergent expression of behavior. So parapatric speciation predicts a hybrid zones will often exist at the junction between the two populations. Original population, divergence across a line, hybrid zone, speciation. Parapatric speciation is when there is no specific extinct barrier to gene flow. The population is continuous, but the population does not meet randomly. Uncontaminated soil, mine waste. Sympatric speciation. Sympatric is derived from the word sim, together, and patric means homeland. This term was introduced by Paulson in 1904. Sympatric speciation is a process through which a new species evolved from a single ancestral species by inhabiting the same geographic region. So, sympatric speciation events are quite common in plants due to polyploidy. If the organism are closely related sister species and present in the same geographic region, such as distribution may be a result of sympatric speciation. Original population, polymorphism occurs, reproductive isolation within the population, speciation. Then sympatric speciation, allopatric versus sympatric speciation. Allopatric speciation occurs as a result of geographic isolation, but sympatric speciation occurs without geographic isolation. Original population, allopatric, peripatric, parapatric, and sympatric. Initial step of speciation, allopatric, barrier formation, new niche entered. Once again, allopatric, original population is here. Initial step of speciation is barrier formation, then isolation, new distant species after equilibrium of new ranges, like this. Just watch this picture carefully and try to understand what is implied in this picture. New niche entered, in isolated niche, new niche entered, and adjacent niche, genetic polymorphism within the population. Mode of speciation, anagenesis and cladogenesis are two methods. Cladogenesis, it is an evolutionary splitting event where a parent species splits into two distinct species forming a clade. Anagenesis, also known as phyletic transformation, which is the process in which a species gradually accumulates genes, eventually becomes sufficiently distinct from its ancestral form without branching or splitting. The first one is the anagenesis, second one is cladogenesis. Then features of macroevolution. Macroevolution operates at or above the level of species and brings about the origin of new species, genera, family, and order. Macroevolution mainly results from macromutation, genetic divergence, and adaptive radiation. Macromutation operates in those populations which have occupied a new adaptive zone. Macroevolution is neither linear but it always radiating and leads to evolutionary divergence. In evolutionary divergence, an existing population splits up into several diverging descendant populations through adaptive specialization. So, macroevolution produces several special adaptations among related but diverging stocks. Macroevolution results in a directional speciation. Macroevolution operates at or above the level of species and brings about the origin of new species, genera, families, order, etc. Macroevolution mainly results from mutations, genetic divergence, and adaptive radiation. Macromutation operates in those populations which have occupied a new adaptive zone. Macroevolution is never linear, but it always radiates and leads to evolutionary divergence. In evolutionary divergence, an existing population splits up into several divergent descendant populations through adaptive specialization. Macroevolution produces several special adaptations among related but diverging stocks. Macroevolution results in directional speciation. So, basis of comparison. The evolution which occurs on a small scale and within a single population is microevolution. Changes in the gene pool which result in few changes in the same species, also called intra-species genetic change. The change in microevolution occurs over short time scales. Genetic information gets altered or rearranged as the process has been experimentally proven, and so creationists support this type of evolution. The peppered mouth, new strains of flu viruses, Galapagos finch, weeks, etc. But macroevolution, the evolution that occurs on a large and surpasses the level of the single species is macroevolution. The macroevolution results in the formation of new species. The change observed in macroevolution occurs over long time scales. There is a new addition, deletion in the genetic structure resulting in new species. As there are many barriers in providing experimental proof, and so creationists do not support this kind of evolution. Then origin of different phyla, development of invertebrates form invertebrates, development of feathers. Once again, macroevolution, the evolution which occurs on a small scale and within a single population is macroevolution. Microevolution, changes in gene pool which results in few changes in same species, also called the intra-species genetic change. The changes in macroevolution occur over short time scales. Genetic information gets altered or rearranged as this process has been experimentally proven, and so creationists support this type of evolution. The peppered mouth, new strains of flu viruses, Galapagos finch beaks, etc. The evolution that occurs on a large and surpasses the level of the single species is macroevolution. The macroevolution results in the formation of new species. The changes observed in macroevolution involves over long time scales. There is a few addition, deletion in the genetic structure resulting in new species, as there are many barriers in providing experimental proof, and so creationists do not support this kind of evolution. Origin of different phyla, development of vertebrates, from invertebrates, development of feathers.